disappear like that. Yeah, kick back.
All right.
You're gonna hear my sorry, when you say record, I'm gonna start talking. You're gonna hear my really loud AC in the back just running, so tell me if that becomes bothersome.
I'm sure one of my cats will come in and scream at me here in a moment.
I heard the dogs a little bit ago. I'm assuming that was the dogs, right? If not, the cats.
That was on my side.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Did You Hear That podcast. Our guest tonight is Brandon Kellum of American Standards, and like 3 or 4 other local bands at least.
At one point or another.
Yeah, back in the day.
Staying busy.
Yeah.
I think the first time I saw him perform, he was in You're Young.
This is true, playing bass for You're Young. I was actually hanging out with those guys last night.
I miss them.
They're still all hanging out like on a daily basis, so it makes me
and still not practicing. What the hell?
That's a funny side story on that. Alex, I think every other week says that he wants to do a cover band, and then he'll get super into it, and we'll find a drummer, which is by far the hardest part, as American Standards is well aware of. And then we finally find someone, and then we'll do it like once and never talk about it again for a month, until the next time he's drunk at 3 a.m. in Texas and says, "Hey, let's do a Queens of the Stone Age cover band or something."
Oh man, it's always the best ideas that get that kind of like stop and go like momentum and just play with your heart like that too.
Yeah. I'll end up learning like 5 or 6 songs on bass that we play one time, and then like I'll completely forget that I ever learned them.
Sounds about right. So we brought you on today to talk to you about your song Broken Culture. So you want to start with what is the basic theme of this song?
First off, I mean, this is a deep cut, as are pretty much all our songs, because no one's ever heard any of them. But this is particularly a deep cut because I think we've only played this song like once live, and outside of that, wrote it pretty much in the studio. So it's also pretty relevant because we finally found a drummer that might stick around for a little while, not too long, but just a little while, So he's learning the songs, and he actually picked this song. So we started practicing the song for the first time since we actually wrote and released it. And we're doing a live stream where we'll be playing this song in a few weeks here. So first time
perfect.
Yeah, first time since the release show to actually play it, where anybody's going to be able to see it. So
that's awesome.
So the song itself, I think this one is probably a more straightforward song than a lot of our songs. Anti-Melody as a whole, we were writing kind of right on the heels of the election. Which we all know how that turned out. And now we're right back on the heels of another one. So the album was really shaping up to probably be one of our most political and socio-political albums to date. But then during the middle of it is when Kodiak Conrad, our initial guitarist, had taken his life, and then I lost my father. And we basically split the album where half of it is very political and half of it is very personal. And this is kind of on the half that's a little more political. And with that, like I said, kind of on the heels of that election, and very relevant to what we're seeing now, the songs really, a lot of these songs were all really about polarization and how particularly social media further polarizes everybody and puts them in silos. So like I said, with this song, we're kind of looking at headline culture, where someone reads a headline, they post it without even reading the actual story, and then that catches fire, and now everybody's pissed off about something that they don't really know anything about outside of that one headline.
Or that might not even be real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's probably 90% of the time as well. And I don't know how far we're gonna go into these lyrics, so not to jump the gun here.
As deep as you want to, man.
Yes, please.
Yeah, but so I've kind of seen this a lot recently, where I think, for example, I was hanging out with some friends, and they brought a friend of a friend that was actually a cop, and it was kind of an interesting conversation, in kind of the world that we're in right now with everything going on, and hearing some of the things that he was saying and some of the perspective he was giving was very interesting, because you can tell it's from articles and things like that aren't really credible sources. So as we kind of talk through some of the stuff that's happened recently, such as the kid that went to the protest with the gun, the name's slipping me right now.
And even relevant.
Exactly, yeah. And we were talking about that, and he was kind of saying all the stuff that the people at the station were telling him kind of happened within that. And then I was kind of just going through them, like, if you just Googled it, you could kind of see that that's not true. That's like very common misconceptions that everybody's just sharing these headlines and getting the story completely wrong. And it put me in his mind to really think, I could understand why you're so angry and why you're so mad if you truly think that some of the headlines that you're reading are right,
or if they're real. I totally hear you on that,
because I don't think anybody really goes into a conversation or has a belief without thinking that their belief is right and that they're morally just. So the reason why a lot of the people that are like, the reason why we're getting into all this frustration is because people aren't realizing how people had that belief in the first place. And I think you have an opportunity to educate some people. Some people are just too far gone and you're not going to get there. But I think when you can educate them and say, okay, this source is obviously some random blog that some far extremist is writing to, bait people, you can bring people to the other side and make them, kind of question their thinking. And then the next time they see something, they might be a little more questioning of it as well.
And even if that's the only change you can evoke, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool, man.
So I wanted to talk about a line in here a little bit, because I've seen similar lines where blueprint human beings, and I've seen a couple other lines where you've mentioned blueprints before. Is that a fascination of yours, or what does that mean to you?
Good question. I guess I never really thought about that. And I think it's kind of funny when I do talk about my lyrics with other people, because I think people will catch on to stuff more quickly than I catch on sometimes. Kind of that whole idea that I mentioned at the beginning, that this album, almost if this was like a 7-inch or a record, you could almost put the political side on one, all 4 political songs on one side and then the personal songs on the other. That's something I think I didn't even realize until someone else told me on a podcast, that it plays almost like 2 different sides. And the way it's broken up on the album, the track listing, wasn't intentional that we put it that way, but it actually is just split right down the middle. So I think the whole idea of using blueprints multiple times, I don't even know that I was aware of that. Just something that kind of came natural. And I think with a lot of my lyrics, they start from me hearing something. If I'm reading a book, watching a movie, hear something in a conversation, I jot it down on a notepad on my phone, and I'm constantly keeping a notepad full of just hundreds, if not thousands of lines. And then after I hear the music that Corey and the guys are writing, I'll pick 1 or 2 lines that vibe with it, and I'll just write off of that.
Dude, my process is so similar. That's so cool.
Oh, yeah. And I think that line, Blueprint Human Beings, was probably just a phrase that I heard somewhere, and I picked it up and put it on that notepad, and then I just started building from it.
That's awesome. I love that line.
That's really cool.
So then, kind of moving through, is there a line in the song that is your favorite?
I think the one that's most interesting when I look back at this, for me, is the whole bridge of the song, where it's we had more guns and bullets, so we made pistols with our hands. Where there's good, there's evil we must fear, so pull the trigger and pray to Lion's land. That's actually the only line in the studio that I didn't have for this song. So I had this song at like 90%, and then we had that bridge, and I knew like the idea that I wanted to portray, the idea that we're kind of making monsters out of everything, making monsters out of people, making monsters out of situations. And I knew I wanted to portray that idea, but I didn't have the lyrics when we actually went to the studio. So we kind of just riffed it, and like I did a couple takes where I was just kind of mouthing the patterns. And then I sat there with the producer that we were working with at the time, and we kind of talked through some of that idea and how we can make it fit what made sense for the song. So I think that imagery just, to me, kind of really stands out. And I think one of my favorite lines, because it was more of a collaborative thing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you got like multiple different perspectives in there. That's always something I really love about like particular lyrics that stand out to me too, is when you don't have just one particular take on it. You have like, it has like a central focus, but it has like multiple meanings to it. It can mean one thing at one level, but also another over here, where and it's at the context of like a single line. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. The other one, kind of looking through it, the end of the song is something too that I still, I don't know, I feel like all this rings true kind of in our environment now, but the end of the song where it says, we don't need another branded revolution or hashtag poetry or rehash poetry. Sorry. We don't need another echo in hall for no one to disagree. That kind of stands out to me too, because I think a lot of times, especially when we're looking at some of the protests on both sides, the image that gets portrayed in the media is the worst of both sides, right. Especially when it comes to the protesting. So you hear about the looting and the people breaking windows, but you don't hear about the 99% of the good stuff that's happening, because it's not as much news, you know? I think the worst part of something always rises to the top, because that's the reportable part. And that's kind of what this means to me, is like, I have people like I know that are, you know, very, very into like they're very, very politically active, socially active. And it's interesting, once again, kind of go back to the whole idea that the way the media portrays something. It's interesting when you hear someone talk about like the BLM movement or Antifa or any of these different things that's going on in the world right now, based on like the lens that they've heard it from, especially if all they've heard it from is what the media is pushing, because they're hearing either the very best or the very worst part of it. And then as soon as they start reading these articles, the algorithms jump into where they feed you that type of stuff over and over again. So you're once again only seeing posts from people that have the same mindset as you, only seeing media that is kind of regurgitating what you already believe. So you're not being forced to question it.
I've been referring to it as like receiving the script for that week, like where you're just like, as soon as a major issue hits the news, you like, if you watch your Facebook feed for long enough, you'll get all the major talking points. You'll get all like the major ideas that your side versus the other side think and all that stuff. You don't even need to do any like real thinking. Like it just hands that information to you. And like, totally see it.
Yeah, actually, I had a friend on Facebook that had posted like it was like the 10 myths or things that you need to know about, was it Breonna Taylor, right? Last name Taylor. And it was like, the first one was like, she's not actually an EMT, she was an EMT. And then the first thing I thought when I read that is like, what does it even matter? Like, she died, she got shot in her own house, you know? So
superfluous information.
You're almost missing the point entirely, that like, this should have never happened. It doesn't matter if she was an EMT or not. And then the next one was something
whether she deserved it or she didn't, like is like not the conversation.
Yeah, and then the other one was like, she didn't actually die in her bed, she was in the living room at the time. It's like, none of these make any sense. Like none of these an argument for shooting this person, you know? But the way that was posed and the verbiage it used, it just incited emotion for people to where this thing was getting hundreds of thousands of reposts, and it was posted by supposedly on Twitter originally like a cop or something. So that gives this lens of what they think is credibility to say, if a cop posted this, it must be true. And I think it was like a person of color too. So it's like, it's hitting all the marks for people to think, well, you know, this is like
justifies my belief.
Yeah,
all the triggers.
With missing the entire point to begin with.
Dude, yeah. Well, I see that so much in some of these conversations where like I saw someone have like in an argument about the role that climate change plays in the forest fires that are happening in California. And someone was talking about like, well, they're like, well, climate change isn't causing these fires. It's not like running around and like setting things on fire. There's people causing fires. And I was like, no, that's not the conversation we're having. We're talking about climate change making it worse, like not literally being the inception of the fire. Like, but like ultimately, ultimately, like what I've noticed in like seeing conversations like that is it's this like you know, the straw man argument. You pull this like little tiny piece of it that you can like eviscerate because it's not logical, and then it makes you discredit the entire idea as a whole. Like I think one of the ways that I see it the most is when people get presented a new idea, like I'm sure you've seen this a lot, Sean, working in the field that you've been in, when people bring up the idea of something like that seems socially radical, like the idea of like needle exchange shelters and that kind of stuff, where people are, or like housing for the homeless without and that kind of stuff,
Without
where
them
people
having
are
to pay.
like, that's crazy. And then, but then like what I've noticed is like people will be like, well, no, like because this, and it like they come conclusion in the span of like 10 to 15 seconds, as if other people haven't been spending years or decades worth of research on this problem to try to come up with the most efficient solution. And like having that like ability to just like immediately create that straw man and tear it apart so you don't have to look at the issue anymore. So you can just continue to exist in the like reality paradigm that is most comfortable to you.
Yeah. And to your point, the whole idea of taking one small thing and using that one thing to discredit an entire larger, you know, concept. I mean, that's the same thing that you see, I think, with the protests and everything else too. It's like, all right, one window got smashed, therefore everybody that believes in this is in it for a bad reason, you know?
Absolutely, man.
I think, I think the whole idea expands, and a lot of our music is about this too, but I think the whole idea kind of expands to really any kind of, you know, we have the tribe mentality, so any group of people. So you can easily tie it to politics and whatever, you know, political faction you subscribe to, or religion, or the lack of religion. It's easy to just point to one group and say, because of this one thing I know, this entire group is horrible, you know, or this entire group is inherently good. Like I think it works on both sides of it. That you can take that one little thing and just use that to feed into like whatever your thoughts are.
I think that one of the kind of the go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna say, I think there's a line in the song that kind of goes along with that. It says, "But don't let them catch you with nothing to say. The deaf and the blind get carried away. It's a sick world we've come on, or we welcomed on the plague."
Yeah, no, I think that's the idea that we always feel like we have to immediately react without, and we react with emotion without actually, you know, letting that emotion subside, putting some critical thinking to it, and then formulating an opinion from that. So the whole idea of the deaf and the blind is, okay, I've heard this one thing and I'm going to completely react based on the emotion that I feel right now. And it's going to be something that if I took an hour or took some time to think about and then formulated an opinion, it'd be much different. And you'd use verbiage that doesn't heat up other people that see it. Because I think that whole idea of like welcoming on the plague is the idea that it expands. So when you react with emotion, other people see that emotion and then react as well. And they're going to react in one of two extremes. They're either going to very much believe what you're saying and then put that back out into the world, or they're going to say this person's absolutely stupid and not even try to engage them in a conversation because of that emotion.
Yeah, that's very true. We were talking about that actually just the other day about people just taking the time to really respond than just like living in that reaction. I actually had a revelation about it. I was just looking one morning and I was next to my wife and I just happened to be like looking over her shoulder as she like just like was scrolling through her Facebook, and I'd never noticed how fast we move through those programs and like how quickly we're just like react, like it's so instantaneous. Like when you're the one doing it, it's just like it's the pace at which you move, so it's just normal to you. But like when you watch another human being move through social media, it's like we're just like reacting quickly and typing out responses. Lately, I've been referring to my Facebook almost as like an emotional minefield, because like it can be a post about, you know, someone having a great day, and then the next post is someone losing a family member or their pet, or like some tragedy in the Middle East, or like like video footage of someone getting shot in the face, or, you know, like crazy stuff, just like all the time, and like these intense bursts and stuff. And that it like takes a huge toll on like just a human being in general, let alone like your ability to have political discourse and be nuanced, because you're just like, when you're blasting through that information so quickly, there's no time to like process emotion and really think about it. You've already shared it and moved on. Like by the time you're like starting to formulate your ideas for real, you know, like
I can't tell you how many times I've personally typed up a response only to like delete it because one or two reasons, either because the emotion that I show in the response, or because I know by posting it, regardless of how much I believe in that or not, it's not necessarily going to make them change their mind.
It's not going to, it won't elicit the change that you actually want to see. But
especially in a public forum, you know, if it's a friend or something, I might, you know, message them personally or get them a text or a call and talk it through. But generally I don't go on someone else's post and say, hey, you're wrong, and here's the link that proves it, because that just makes them feel stupid and makes them get that gut reaction too. So I think doing it in a more private forum makes a lot more sense. I don't know if you've seen this on Netflix, but they've got this new, assuming this is a sponsor for the show, so I'm shilling Netflix right now. They've got that new show, or that new documentary, The Social Dilemma, and it's kind of about this whole thing too. It's actually really good. I watched it a couple minutes ago.
I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard a lot of people talking about it, and I understand it's like a very similar concept. It sounds like very relevant to the times. Yeah. Especially like, did you ever see that one that was on Netflix too? The great hack about Cambridge Analytica and all the misused political information, all that stuff.
I don't think I did. No.
It's basically about like data harvesting through social media and how it was used by politics to create political ads and influence elections and that kind of stuff. It's pretty crazy. I'll check but it out. It's the same kind of thing. It's just, instead of it being for corporate America, it was for political America.
It's very, like you said, very relevant to right now and what we're gonna see over especially the next month.
Yeah, for real. Well, on the note of going back to some of your lyrics and stuff, is there anything that like any particular lyric in your song that like you really wanted to hone in on that was like a favorite of yours or anything like that?
Outside of this song, I think like one that came to mind, because I was kind of on the wall when you guys were asking me, you know, what song to do here. The other one that came to mind right away was Writer's Block Party, which is very different than this song in the sense that it's a lot more metaphor, a lot more abstract than this song, where this song's a little more straightforward. And I think the other side of the spectrum, a lot of what I write about is kind of living your life to the fullest despite, you know, what's going on in your life and any adversity that you're facing, that you've always got to push through it. Persistence, perseverance, and the ability for you to suspend kind of the pain by looking kind of beyond the pain. And I think one lyric in Writer's Block Party particularly is the promise is now at the edge of the knife, and when the blood spills, you know you survive. And that's the whole idea of kind of, once again, living for right now, and just doing exactly what you want to do with your life right now, spending it with the people that you want to spend it with, doing the things that you want to do, because you don't know if you have tomorrow, and you know you don't know what the future lies. So I think it's I would say the sentiment is something that you hear a lot, but I think the phrasing of it, when that line came to me, that was just very much one of the lines I built the entire song on.
Yeah. Well, that's cool stuff, man. Hey, cameo.
That was my
cameo.
Delilah. Damn, can't even say her name.
So how often do you? I'm assuming that's your cat, right?
Yeah, that's her.
There you go. I'm assuming every time you see her, you say, "Hey there, Delilah."
Oh yeah, I usually ask her what it's like in New York City.
Yeah.
Abel actually occasionally texts me to ask her. So.
Nice. Yeah. Skype's your cat.
He does. He's like, let me ask her, and I'm like, what?
Cool, man. Well, did you?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, did you have anything you wanted to promo before we let you go?
No, I mean, American Standards, we haven't been doing a lot. Obviously, no one's doing a lot when it comes to shows or anything. Right, But also just we've slowed down quite a bit. I mean, we've been a band for just about 10 years now. Nice. So we're a few months shy of 10 years. So our, releasing new material is definitely slowed to a creep. We have just recently, over the last 2 months, found a drummer that's kind of learned not only a set, but he wants to write new stuff, and he does want to tour when things get back to normal. So we started writing some new songs, and when it comes to the set that we want to play when we get back to it, we're going to be playing pretty much a whole new set. What'd you say, sir?
I just said Red Queen.
Oh, yeah.
That one's just so much
honestly,
fun.
Red Queen's probably one of my favorite songs of all our songs. I think that's the direction I definitely, when we first started a band, I wanted to go lean really heavily into that style.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you. But no, I do think I think the set that we come back with is going to be a very different set. So playing for so long, we've played a lot of the Still Life album. I think there's songs like Harvester that we've played at every single show in the last 10 years. And we haven't, there's a lot of stuff that's been overlooked where we only played it a few times. Maybe we played it at CD release show. We're taking all those songs and we're focusing on learning those now. So when we come back, we're coming back with a set of songs that people haven't seen us play live.
Yes.
And the first time to actually see that is going to be on actually Halloween. We're doing a live stream at this new venue in Prescott. The venue is called,
is it The Den?
The Den.
There you go. The Den. Exactly. Are you guys doing the live stream as well?
No, Cody just kind of
he was just
hyped
talking
it.
about it.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Yes. Oh, so I think Cody, I saw him on the calendar as well. Yeah. So we're doing the Den, and that's gonna be the first time that we play outside of our practice space with this new drummer. And we're gonna be playing a lot of songs that we've never played live. Songs like Bartenders Without Wings, which is when we found out there's actually a clean channel on a guitar. So we're doing that. We'll be doing songs
joking.
Yeah. We'll be doing songs like Church Burner and just like a lot of songs from Anti-Nelly that, like I said, were songs that we just, we played once or twice and just never brought back. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. After that, next month we're also doing a live stream at the Nile as well. So that's kind of what's going on.
Right on, man. So you guys are like, you were talking about slowing down to a creep. That sounds like y'all are gonna be pretty busy coming up soon.
True. I mean, slowing down in relation to, I guess, how we started, man. Like
Creative
we started
stuff,
where,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, live shows, we'd play like 2 or 3 live shows a month, easy. We would always play 1 or 2 weekends out of town every month. We try to make it a case to do like a 10-day tour once every 3 months. So just recently, actually, before all this, in January, we played our 400th show as a band.
Nice.
So we definitely started off on all cylinders, and then over the last 2 years, it's been like, instead of an album, we're releasing 1 single this year,
Yeah.
Instead of doing a 10-day tour, we're doing like a 5-day tour, So I think we continue on that path. Honestly, I think where we end up as a band is, ideally, I would love to put out another full length, but if we can't put out another full length, or if that's too much to chew, I think I would love to re-record 2 songs that we're actually working on now that we put out in 2011 that we took down from all the streaming services. So I'd love to re-record those and give them the justice that they're due. Re-record a couple new songs and just do like an EP. And if that reignites the fire and it gets us back on the road and writing again, that's awesome. But if not, that brings us to 10 years, and then maybe we scale back and kind of do what my other band, The Hostage Situation, does, which is we just play an annual show and we make it like a benefit or a charity show.
Yeah.
So we're starting off small. Like I said, expectations are low, and then if it exceeds it, I'll be happy. But if not, I'm not going to be bummed about it.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're just trying to love what you're doing, and that's the best thing to do.
I mean, if anything, with COVID and everything that's going on right now, it's given me some time to pause and reflect and really realize that a lot of the stuff that I like about the music scene is the community aspect of it.
Yeah.
And I can still do that without having to play a show every week,
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have enjoyed the time to myself of not always just plugging the band.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Well, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks for coming, Brandon. It's been a pleasure. I'm glad we didn't have to trust you with a microphone this time.
Yeah, exactly.
Kidding. Thank you so much for coming out, man. We will keep you updated on the release date, and make sure you have all the links and stuff to hype it up. Okay?
Cool. Sounds good, man. Take it easy.
You too.
Bye,
All
guys.
right. Have a great rest of your night, man. Later.
You as well.